Hello. Can't you see with your eyes? Do you want to see it after the video?
Today, we're jumping into something that hits home for, well, hundreds of millions of people all over the world: myopia. You know that feeling, right? When a street sign up ahead or a slide in a presentation is just a smudge, and you have to get closer for it to pop into focus? For a huge chunk of the population, that's not just a passing moment. It's a daily reality called myopia. You probably know it as nearsightedness. So today, we're going to take a really close look at what's actually happening inside the eye. We'll uncover some of the hidden risks when myopia gets really serious, and then we'll explore the amazing, futuristic procedures that are literally changing how people see the world. You ready? Let's dive in. All right, first things first. Let's get a crystal clear picture of what myopia actually is and, why it even happens. So at its most basic level, myopia is just a focusing error. It's why the book in your hands is perfectly sharp, but the clock on the wall across the room is a total blur. This usually kicks in during childhood, somewhere between 6 and 13, and it can get progressively worse through the teen years. This slide shows you exactly what's going on. In an eye with perfect vision, light comes in and focuses directly on the retina. That's like the screen at the back of your eye. But with myopia, the light focuses in front of the retina. It's kind of like a projector that's aimed just a little too short. By the time the image actually hits the screen, it's already gone out of focus and turned blurry. So, why does the eye's projector miss its mark? Well, a lot of the time, it's because the eyeball has grown just a little too long from front to back. Or sometimes the cornea, the clear front part of the eye, is just a bit too curved and it bends the light too much. And yeah, genetics are a big deal. If your parents are nearsighted, your chances are definitely higher. But here's where it gets really fascinating. Our environment plays a huge role. Things like tons of reading or screen time are major contributors. In fact, some studies even suggest that just spending more time playing outside as a kid, looking at things far away, can actually help slow it down. Now, myopia isn't a one-size-fits-all condition. It's measured in these units called diopters, which you've probably seen on your glasses prescription. You can just think of it as a number that shows how much correction you need. So mild is up to -1.5, and moderate goes up to -6. But once you cross that -6 threshold, you're officially in the zone of high myopia. And that's when things get a lot more serious than just having blurry vision. So what actually happens when myopia gets that severe? Well, it's not just about needing thicker and thicker glasses. The physical shape of your eye begins to change, and that's where the real dangers start to pop up. The best way to wrap your head around this is to picture a balloon. As you keep blowing air into it, the rubber stretches out, getting thinner and more fragile. That is exactly what's happening inside the eye in cases of high myopia. As the eyeball gets longer, all those delicate tissues inside, especially the super important retina, get stretched thin, just like that balloon. And all that stretching can lead to some really big problems. When that tissue is pulled so taut, it's much more likely to tear. This can cause the retina to actually detach, which is a full-blown medical emergency. It can also lead to bulging at the back of the eye or cause damage right in the center of your vision. And as if that's not enough, it also seriously increases your lifetime risk of developing other conditions like glaucoma and cataracts.
This image here gives you a sense of just how dangerous this can be. That thinned-out retina can get little tears in it, and if fluid seeps behind it, the whole thing can just peel away. That can cause permanent vision loss. So the main takeaway here, the thing to really remember, is that high myopia is so much more than bad eyesight. It's a serious threat to your eye health.
But okay, now for the good news. And it's really good news. For anyone looking for freedom from glasses and contacts, modern medicine offers some absolutely incredible solutions. So let's walk through 3 of the leading options out there. First up is lasik, the one most of us have heard of. A surgeon uses a laser to create a really thin, hinged flap on the surface of the cornea. They lift it up, kind of like the page of a book. Then another laser precisely reshapes the tissue underneath. After that, they just lay the flap back down and it heals on its own. The big selling point for LASIK, the recovery is famously incredibly fast. Next up, we've got PRK. Now, the most important thing to know about PRK is this: there is no flap. That's the huge difference. Instead, the surgeon gently removes the cornea's outer layer, which actually grows back on its own. The same laser then reshapes the surface. You wear a protective contact lens for a few days while it all heals up, so the recovery is a bit more gradual, but the final vision is just as fantastic. And finally, there's EVO ICL, which is a total game changer because it works in a completely different way. Instead of removing tissue from the cornea, it adds a tiny, foldable lens inside the eye itself. You can think of it like a permanent contact lens that you never have to take out or clean. And because it doesn't reshape the cornea, it's an incredible option for people with really high prescriptions or thin corneas. The best part? It's reversible.
Okay, so we have 3 amazing options. How in the world do you figure out which one is the right one for you?
Well, this little cheat sheet breaks it all down pretty nicely. As you can see, LASIK is fantastic if you've got healthy, thick corneas and you want that super quick recovery. PRK is a great choice for people with thinner corneas or maybe those with really active lifestyles since there's no flap to worry about. And EVO ICL, well, it really shines for people with high myopia or dry eye issues, and it's the only one that's reversible. It's the, wow, I can't believe this is an option for me procedure for so many people.
This is the question that's on pretty much everyone's mind. It can feel like a lot to figure out, but we can actually make it even simpler. Here is a super handy 3-question shortcut you can use to start a conversation with your doctor. Number 1, are you worried about dry-eyed or have you been told you have thin corneas? If so, you should be asking about PRK or EVO ICL. Number 2, is your prescription really high? Then EVO ICL is often the best and sometimes only solution. And third, is a lightning-fast recovery your absolute top priority? Then you'll want to talk about LASIK and EVO ICL. But remember, and this is probably the most important part, this is just a starting point. The final decision, the right answer for you, can only come after a surgeon does a whole series of detailed measurements on your specific eyes. They'll match the perfect procedure to your unique anatomy, not the other way around. As more and more of us experience that blurry world we talked about in the beginning, it's just incredible to know that the technology to bring everything back into sharp focus is getting better and better. So the next time you see one of those blurry signs, just remember, for so many people, there are truly life-changing solutions out there. It makes you wonder, what's next for the future of sight? Thanks for tuning in.
All right, today we're going to talk about something that literally changes how billions of people see the world. But here's the thing, it's a story that goes way deeper than just needing a pair of glasses.
You know that feeling, right? You're trying to read a sign way down the road, or maybe you're trying to make out a friend's face across the street, and everything just kind of dissolves. The sharp edges of the world just melt away into a blur. Well, for a huge chunk of the world's population, that's not just a passing moment. It's their everyday reality. It's called myopia, but you probably know it as nearsightedness. So we're going to break it all down. We'll look at what's actually happening inside the eye. We'll get into the hidden risks when myopia gets really serious. And then, the exciting part, we'll explore the incredible modern solutions that are total game changers.
Okay, so first things first, let's get down to the fundamentals. What is actually going on when someone is nearsighted? At its core, myopia is really just a focusing problem. See, in an eye that's working perfectly, light comes in and hits a laser-sharp focal point right on the retina, which is kind of like the movie screen at the back of your eye. But with myopia, that light falls short. It focuses in front of the retina, so by the time the image actually gets to that screen, it's all out of focus.
I love this analogy. Think of it like a spotlight in a theater. In a normal eye, that spotlight hits the actor on stage perfectly. It's a crisp, clear circle of light. But in a myopic eye, usually because the eyeball itself is a little too long, that spotlight focuses on a point in midair before it even reaches the stage. So what actually hits the actor is a scattered, blurry mess of light. That's your distant vision with myopia. And it's not a one-size-fits-all thing either. Most people have what we call simple myopia. That's the classic kind. But there are other flavors too. There's pathological myopia, which is a much more severe and degenerative form. We'll talk more about that in a second. There's even something called night myopia, where your vision is pretty good during the day but gets blurry in low light. And there's even false myopia, which is just temporary blurriness from eye strain, like after staring at a screen for too long.
So we measure myopia in these units called diopters. Your prescription, basically. Anything up to about -1.5 is considered mild. Then you have the moderate range, which goes all the way to -6. But once you cross that -6.0 diopter line, well, you've entered what's called high myopia. And this is where the conversation really shifts from, just an inconvenience to a serious health concern. And this is the part that most people don't know about. Why does being very nearsighted actually matter? Because it's not just about needing thicker glasses. It's about the physical health and integrity of the eye itself.
Here's what's going on. As that eyeball gets longer and longer in high myopia, all the delicate tissues at the back of the eye, especially the retina, get stretched thin. The best way to picture it is to think of a balloon. The more you blow it up, the thinner and more fragile its walls become, right? That is exactly what is happening to the inside of the eye.
And that stretching, man, it seriously increases the risk for some really scary, vision-threatening conditions. We're talking about things like retinal detachment, where that movie screen literally starts peeling away from the back of the eye. There's a much higher risk of glaucoma, which is damaging pressure in the eye, and getting cataracts way earlier in life. You can even get these wild conditions like a posterior staphyloma, which is an actual outward bulge on the back of the eyeball, or lacquer cracks, which are literal breaks in the layers of the retina.
And this isn't just a theory. We can actually measure the damage. Research shows that for every single millimeter the eyeball gets longer. The choroid, that's the super important layer of blood vessels that nourishes the retina, it thins by about 32 micrometers. It's a slow, progressive weakening of the eye's most vital support system. Okay, I know, that was the heavy stuff. But here's the good news. The science here is incredible. We have amazing modern options for correcting myopia, and each one takes a totally unique approach.
First up, the one everyone's heard of, LASIK. And if you're going to remember one word for LASIK, it's flap. A surgeon creates this incredibly thin, hinged flap on the surface of your cornea. They lift it up like turning the page of a book. Then, a super precise cool beam laser reshapes the corneal tissue underneath. After that, they just lay the flap back down, and it acts like its own natural Band-Aid. Pretty cool.
All right, next up is PRK. Now, PRK uses the exact same amazing laser to reshape the cornea, but here's the huge difference. There is no flap. Instead of creating a flap, the surgeon gently removes the cornea's super thin outer layer. The laser does its work right on the surface, and then a special protective contact lens is put on for a few days while that outer layer just grows right back.
And now for our third path, which is in a totally different league. This is EVO ICL. It's not a laser procedure at all. It's additive, not subtractive. What does that mean? Instead of removing any tissue from your cornea, a surgeon places a tiny, flexible, biocompatible lens inside your eye, right behind the iris. You can think of it like a permanent contact lens that you can't see or feel. And because nothing is removed, it's also completely reversible.
So there you have it, 3 very different technologies. The big question is, how in the world do you know which path might be the right one for you? Let's figure out how to match the procedure to the person.
All right, this chart is basically the cheat sheet. It lays it all out. You can see right away that for recovery speed, LASIK and EVO ICL are the big winners. But if you have thinner corneas, then PRK and EVO ICL are usually the go-to options. If dry eye is something you're really worried about, well, EVO ICL really stands out because it doesn't cause it. And of course, the big one, only EVO ICL is reversible.
In this quote, this really just sums it all up, doesn't it? So many people feel this way. You want that freedom, that crystal clear vision, but the path to get there can feel super confusing, and that's a totally normal feeling.
So, to make it all a bit simpler, here is a little 3-question framework you can take with you into a consultation. Just ask yourself, is my main worry dry eye or having a thin cornea? If so, you're going to want to ask your doctor about PRK or EVO ICL. Is my prescription crazy high? Well, EVO ICL was literally designed for that. And finally, is a super fast recovery an absolute must? Then you're probably looking at LASIK or EVO ICL. This just helps you start the right conversation.
You know, myopia rates are just exploding all over the world, which makes these solutions more important than ever. This choice between reshaping the front of the eye or adding to what's inside, it's a huge fork in the road for vision correction. And as this tech keeps getting better and better, the real question is, which one of these paths is going to become the new standard for how we see the world?